Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Travel. My name is Gary Arndt, just back from the Balkans, where I was driving around, visited Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, Serbia. Had a grand old time. Was at the ATTA Adventure Next Summit. And with me, as usual, is the man so nice they named him twice, Mr. Chris Christensen. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I've been driving around also, although to more exotic places like San Luis Obispo, Pismo Beach, Morro Bay, and the Finger Lakes.
The Finger Lakes of California?
The Finger Lakes of New York. No, that was two different trips.
Oh.
Back to back, 7 hours in between them.
Who is St. Louis Obispo, by the way?
I'll have to look that up. I do not know who St. Louis Obispo is.
What is an Obispo? Is that the patron? He's the patron saint of. Why was it so important that he got a city named after him?
I don't know, but I do know that it's the happiest city in the U.S., according to some reports. So I was happy when I was there, so it must be true.
All right. Not from San Luis Obispo, but from California. This Jen Leo. How are you doing, Jen?
Good to see you guys. I've been mastering the art of the staycation. I went to Dana Point for Mother's Day and stayed at the lovely St. Regis.
So you staycated.
I staycated. You know, so many people don't like that word, but it doesn't bother me at all. It just doesn't.
It's just not a thing.
Nah. I stayed at a local hotel for Mother's Day, and my husband was thoughtful, and it was a wonderful stay. And the deal tip there is it cost us less points because it turns out they're renovating. So an SPG hotel that is usually super primo, practically out of reach, 25,000 points, was definitely a splurge at 20,000, but still a significant drop just because the pool wasn't working.
And these are Starwood points we're talking about, not husband points.
Exactly. My husband got points for spending our points on me. I mean us, right? Us.
Oh, of course. Yeah, us.
And by the way, Gary, the answer to your question is Obispo means bishop, and Saint Louis Obispo was Bishop Saint Louis of Toulouse in France.
I love how fast Chris can look up things.
Excellent job. And our guest this week, he is the author of the new book, Backpacking with Dracula. Why one would want to backpack with Dracula, I do not know, but I have a feeling that we will find out. Also working at the Mall of America, I'm going to be hosting TBex this year, Mr. Leif Peterson. How are you doing?
Hello, very well. It's Pedersen. Can you hear me?
Pedersen. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, I'm just asking because my video doesn't pop up when I speak.
And when we say that you're working at the Mall of America, how is the job at Hot Dog on a Stick?
Oh, it's fantastic. I get all the hot dogs I want and cotton candy.
How often do you ride the merry-go-round?
I have never been on the merry-go-round, but I've been on SpongeBob, SquarePants, Rock Bottom Plunge like 15 times.
Ooh, I didn't even know about that one. Is that your hit thrill ride?
It's the scariest ride in the park. I love it.
Terrific.
Most people don't usually associate the word scary with SpongeBob SquarePants.
No,
I know.
I find him just terrifying. So
when I say that to people, they assume it's a kiddie ride, and they have no idea. I have to illustrate. You know, we go upside down 3 times, and it's a hairpin climb followed by a hairpin drop.
Wow.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
And fun.
Well, why don't we get into some news stories before we talk about the new book? This one was kind of one of the big stories this week, and I kind of like how the Washington Post set this up. On Thursday evening, a 40-year-old man with dark curly hair, olive skin, and an exotic foreign accent boarded a plane. He was found scribbling incomprehensible things on a sheet of paper, and a diligent passenger notified a flight attendant, and the man was taken off the plane. Who was he? Well, he was an Ivy League professor of economics. He turned out to be Italian, and what he was writing on his paper turned out to be math.
that math can be very scary, I understand, to some people. So
yes, it was. Well, it comes from an Arab group called Algebra,
That's right. That's true.
which has been terrorizing children for decades.
I did like the fact that, unlike so many of these stories, he got off and very quickly, someone, was it a gate agent or a TSA, somebody went, he's a math professor. I mean, they really didn't take very long for them to go to the process of, what did we take this guy off the plane for? So at least it didn't end, like some of these stories that we've had recently, which, somebody is panicking a little too prematurely.
Yeah, I love this line. Menzio showed the authorities his calculations and was allowed to return to his seat.
But in all fairness, bombs use math. There's science involved. We cannot take any chances, people. This is how the terrorists win. If you see something and you don't know math, say something. Because God forbid people be doing math on the plane.
Are doing their math calculations of how they're going to blow up the plane while they're sitting on the plane.
He might have been a procrastinating terrorist. Maybe he should have done his homework before he got on the plane. He's like, oh crap, I got to do it now.
All right.
The interesting thing, I saw a whole bunch of other articles about this. One of the things that I thought was of note is, what's his name? Is it Steve Snyder? He's a security expert. He has a blog that I follow. And the thing he pointed out is when you rely on amateurs to do your security, you will get amateur security. And this is kind of exactly what we're seeing, that people's concerns are based out of ignorance, because they don't know math in this case, and this is why we are constantly having these sort of stories on this show almost every week. Speaking of which, there was another story, this was in the New York Times, about a college student who was taken off a Southwest plane because he was speaking Arabic. He was speaking Arabic. And so he gets taken off the plane. It was a Southwest plane. And a man who worked for the airline who spoke Arabic talked to him. He ended up being taken, talked to the FBI. But he, unlike the previous story, was not allowed back on the plane. He turned out he was talking to his uncle. They were Iraqi refugees, grew up in Iraq, came to the United States, and he was talking about a speech he saw from the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. He was very excited, and he called his uncle. And the part of this that I thought was fascinating is that the person who reported him reportedly said he was talking about martyrdom in Arabic. And my question is, how do they know that if they don't know Arabic?
Just the tone of Arabic, everybody sounds like they're about to martyr themselves. I don't know. And it's only the 5th most spoken language in the world. It just blows my mind that this keeps happening.
I remember the first time, one of the first times I was in an Arab-speaking country. I remember being in Dubai, and I turned on the television. I was watching some shows, and there was a show that had a series of panelists, and they were arguing at each other and shouting, and blah, 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 and I thought, oh man, this must be a political show or something. No, it was about soccer. And I think people, the only time we ever see people speaking Arabic is on television, usually associated with a protest or something. And I think people assume that if someone is just animated, that they're, angry or something like that, and it's not necessarily the case.
Well, they would be able to calm a lot of these situations down if they could just, give somebody one of those little bottles of alcohol, but it turns out they seem to be missing from the plane.
Yeah, you can buy them for $1 on the internet, apparently.
So the story that Life and Chris are talking about, Memphis, Tennessee, there was a flight attendant on Endeavor Air, which is one of these regional airlines. 20-year-old Rachel Trevor, if you're a listener, sorry, Rachel, she got indicted for stealing 1,500 mini bottles of liquor and selling them online. The bottles normally go for $8, and she was selling them for $1, which means she got a whopping $1,500 out of this. Does $1 seem kind of cheap to you?
No, actually, it seemed like the $8 seemed like robbery, but I think there were two different stories of robbery going on in this particular story. But yeah, the dollar, it depends on what's in them. It depends how good they are.
Well, before I saw the 1,500 count, I thought, Oh, wow, what a headline. I bet people have been doing this for years. I bet flight attendants have been nicking a few bottles here and there for years, and now they're finally cracking down. And then I saw the number, and I think there's a big difference between 1,500 and 2.
Well, and I suspect that if she had, had a rough flight and taken one of the little bottles back to the hotel room, even if she'd done that every flight, I don't think anybody probably would have made a big fuss about it. But the fact that she was selling them on the internet.
Yeah, that's where she got busted.
I have a question about these little bottles. And Jen, you're kind of the expert on the subject, I would assume. These bottles, I'm guessing, are about like a shot.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Roughly, I would assume.
Yeah.
So how much would you pay for a shot at a bar? Or like a mixed...
I am not the expert on this, Gary, but I think mixed drinks these days go between, depending on what kind of a bar you're at, I don't know, $8 to $15 a drink, maybe a little more. I don't know, Gary.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I'm thinking the dollar thing. I would have sold them for like $2 to $3. Considering your cost of goods sold is $0. Yeah, but just one seemed really cheap and a lot of effort to sell this online plus shipping for $1.
At least $2. I think you can still occasionally get them in liquor stores, like proper corner store liquor stores. I think they sell the little mini bottles.
Yep. Right by the cash register.
See, so life is the expert.
And how much do they run at this store?
I have no idea, but I know that they're on sale by the cash register.
I know I did a picnic in Carmel recently, and they had some of the nice little mini bottles of wine. So they had the demi bottles, so the half bottles, but they also had quarter-size bottles and things that were just nice picnic size. So a little bigger than the airline size, but very much more practical than opening a full bottle of wine when you're out on a picnic.
I saw that when I was this last week when I was in the Balkans. Every time you'd order wine, it almost always came in a small bottle. They never had big bottles, and I don't know why that was. I'd never seen it before, but when you got a glass of wine, it always just they came out with an empty glass and a small bottle at the table, and that's what you had to work with.
Maybe they've been buying them on the internet for $1.
Could be. Not anymore. I think there's going to be a massive supply shock that's going to hit the tiny liquor industry. Let's do one more news story. I thought this was kind of interesting. So concert violinist Rachel Barton Pine was denied being boarded onto an American Airlines flight from Chicago to Albuquerque because she was carrying her violin. And this is a, I don't know how you pronounce it, a Joseph Guarani de Gisu violin created in 1742. I'm guessing costs a whole lot of money, probably somewhere in the 7 figures.
I think irreplaceable is probably the correct term for it, yeah.
But she flies 100,000 miles a year on American, and they wouldn't let her bring it on the plane. And a violin is not that big, obviously. I think it would even fit in the overhead bin on one of these small regional flights. And the captain basically said, it's not going on because I say so. And I'm kind of sympathetic to this simply because I always travel with my camera. And there is no way that I would ever let my camera equipment be gate checked or, having to check it normally. I always take it with me as my carry-on. And so I completely understand why she didn't want to be separated with it. And from what I also understand, a lot of these insurance policies for very high-end musical instruments require you to have it on your person basically at all times.
But she doesn't even own it, was the thing that came out of the story, too. It had been lent to her. So, yeah.
Well, that's often the case, yeah. Some foundation or someone will let a musician use it for a period of years, or they lease it or whatever, with massive insurance policies on it.
Well, and she also pointed out to them that their own policy said she could do this, but pilots are given a fair amount of, as we've talked about on the show before, a fair amount of authority on a plane. And the pilot does have the authority to say no, although in this case I think he abused that authority. It sounded like he was saying no because he could, is what it really came across in the story as, at least.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, and she talked about it a little bit. They put her on a different flight to Albuquerque on a larger plane, but basically she said, she had no opportunity to show that it would fit, and the guy was just kind of being a jerk about it. So.
Now, you said we were going to do one more story, but I did want to look at the one that was just above that, because I thought it's interesting when we talk about all the weird things that happen in flights. I love the fact that a research study has shown that air rage, somebody hitting somebody in a plane, the stewardess hitting somebody, or being hit by somebody, or the seatmate or whatever, is 4 times more likely to happen on planes with first class cabins. And it doesn't mean that it's happening in first class, but it appears to be, at least the article was assuming, that it happens when people feel left out, that there's a first class, I'm not there, and they get all bent out of shape by that, and therefore more air rage happens. I didn't think they quite proved their case from the study, but it is an interesting stat, at least, that on maybe it's just larger planes which are more likely to have first class cabins.
Well,
air rage 4 times more likely on planes with first class.
I have an alternate theory.
Okay.
The only planes without first class are very short flights. So there's probably a correlation between the length of the flight, not there being a first class. That's
good
my
point,
guess.
Gary. Quite astute.
Yeah, science.
Yeah, I didn't think it quite proved their causality argument there, but I thought it was at least interesting data point.
Well, but this is a great example, and John Oliver had a great segment on last week on his HBO show, talking about the way the media portrays scientific studies.
Right.
And this was in the Daily Mail, which kind of sucks. But the headline, this is the headline verbatim: air rage is 4 times more likely to happen in planes with first-class cabins because economy passengers feel inferior. And I think that the conclusion is something that they're kind of inserting into the headline, not necessarily something. I mean, that might be a possibility, assuming they find that relationship to be true, but there would be other factors as well.
Well, and it's interesting that that's the headline, and later on it says there was little academic research on why air rage is increasingly occurring. So the story doesn't back up the headline.
No,
but,
and it seldom does.
It makes a good headline.
Oh, we talked about it, so well played. But enough of news stories. Life.
Yes.
Crosses, silver bullets, steaks. What do you prefer to keep in your bag while backpacking with Dracula? Garlic?
I am a big fan of garlic, no matter where I am. No, I wasn't. I mean, when you're in Romania and you're thinking about all the atrocities that happened there 500 years ago, it does get. If you have a wild imagination like I do, it can get a little weird. But no, despite Romania being an extremely superstitious place, it never really got to me. Like the whole, you can't have the window of the plane or the train down, even if it's 100 degrees inside the train, because the wind will make you sick. That's called curant, and stuff like that. And modern day Romanians, this is still that's a very popular, well spread superstition, and it's just people suffering for no reason. Those mini buses where they won't let you, some little old lady won't let you open up the window, that drives me crazy.
So, Life, you wrote a book called Backpacking with Dracula. Did you actually go backpacking with Dracula, or is this one of those stories where the headline isn't really?
You can't. No, I wanted to follow in his trail. He went backpacking, or his version of backpacking at some stage, and I just kind of
when you say he, you mean he, the historic Vlad the Impaler,
15th century Prince of Wallachia,
Bram Stoker's Prince of Darkness.
Yeah, I don't think he did a lot of backpacking. He mostly kept to himself. He was an introvert, sounds like. But Vlad the Impaler, he covered a lot of territory in a very short period of time that he was in rule.
When I was in Romania, one of the things I noticed, I had heard the stories of Vlad the Impaler, and what kind of made something click is that when I was going through the countryside, I would see all these fields, and there would be these hay bales, or these stacks of hay, more accurate, and every haystack in the middle of it had a wooden spike that everything was stacked on, and it kind of, I realized it's like how it would be a very short step from seeing this in all these fields to someone coming up with the idea, we could put people on those spikes. And that's probably what he did. But yeah, you can still see it today, these wooden spikes in like all these farm fields. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I don't think anyone knows for sure, but by all the sources I looked at, the prevailing theory is that the Ottomans actually started staking people and, you know, putting them up on spikes, but it spread to the Eastern Europe, and the Balkans and Eastern Europe pretty quickly.
Hey, Life, for those of us who have not traveled through Romania, tell us about the trail that your book travels through. What destinations and a little bit of what you go through during the book.
So, Vlad the Impaler was Prince of Wallachia, which is a region in southern and current-day Romania, in the southern part of the country. He also spent a lot of time in Transylvania, which is just north of that, which you still sometimes you run across people that don't realize Transylvania is an actual place. Like, they think it's been mentioned so many times in so many fiction stories, movies. People think it's an imaginary place, like Neverland. So, yeah, that's mainly where he was during his life. He spent some time in Moldavia, which is also in modern-day Romania, where his cousin, Stephen the Great, is from. Stephen and Vlad were cousins. And Stephen the Great went on to be sainted, and Vlad was deemed to be a monster, even though there wasn't really much different between their methods. Stephen was also a fan of staking people, but I guess he was just he had a little bit more likability than Vlad. So most of it happens in modern-day Romania, although Vlad spent some of his formative years as let's see here, he was a guest of the Ottoman court, but not by choice. He was being held there. It was kind of like a study abroad / hostage situation. The Sultan kept Vlad and his brother for 7 years to make sure that Vlad's father, who was also named Vlad, kind of stuck to his agreement back in Wallachia.
And you even visit some castles during the book.
Yes. There's several castles that are still standing, or at least parts of them are still standing, and you can visit them today. That's more or less the backpacking part of the book. I go around to all the surviving sites in Romania that are associated with Vlad the Impaler. Some of them are in great condition, some of them are just, you know, knee-high ruins, but it's all very historic and interesting.
So, as a backpacker, were you Johnny from Hotel Transylvania and Hotel Transylvania 2?
Well, I didn't get to be a backpacker in Romania. The first time I was in Romania, I was a Lonely Planet author, so I was on the job. But, you know, having gone to Romania or done, I don't know how many Lonely Planet books, like 6 or 7 Lonely Planet books. I did the trail several times on behalf of Lonely Planet, so I got pretty familiar with all those areas.
I've been to a couple of the places in Romania that are associated with Vlad the Impaler. What would you say are the top attractions if somebody were to go to Romania, they want to visit some of these places that they should visit?
Without question, the top attraction, because it is in such good condition, is Bran Castle, which is in the village of Bran, which is very near Brasov, just inside the southern border of Transylvania, very near Wallachia as well. Vlad, this is famously called Dracula's Castle, but Vlad never lived there. It wasn't his castle. He probably visited there and or was a prisoner there. No one's really sure. It's complicated. So he stepped foot in the castle, but it's not his castle. That's just a place he was temporarily, either involuntarily or just kind of stopped to take a break. He stayed there for a few days. The real Dracula's Castle is just over the border in Wallachia to the south, over the Carpathian Mountains. That's called Poinar Citadel, or Poinar Castle. That, unfortunately, is now ruins. A large portion of that went tumbling down the mountain in 1888. There's still head-high ruins. You can still get a sense of what it looked like. But it's not nearly as pretty. as Bron Castle. Also, you have to walk up over 1,200 steps to get to the castle, and I think that's a deterrent for lots of visitors. They'd rather just go to Bron Castle, where you don't have to get a cardiac arrest just to see the site. Bron Castle gets hundreds of thousands of visitors every year, though, so it's by far the most popular.
What about Sigishwaya?
That is also well, it depends. I like Sigishwara a lot. Some people with less imagination, they don't like it. It's very touristy. It's overrun with tour buses. That is true. But if you are just doing a day trip, you're just there with all. It's kind of like going to Venice. It's insane during the day, and when all the tour buses take off at night, it's a very pleasant, nice place to be. So if you can spend the night there, it changes the experience completely. But if you're just there for a day trip, which most people are, because it's not a very big place, you can see it in a couple hours. So most people don't spend the night there. But that being said, that's Dracula's birthplace. He was there from birth until age 3. He wasn't there for very long, but they happily claim him as, their I don't know how they would describe it. He's got a statue. He's got his old house is still standing. It is a restaurant now that you can go into, and a half-decent restaurant. Go have some red wine if you want, and kind of absorb the pre-impaling Vlad vibes in the building. And it's also just a very pleasant. It's a very well-preserved citadel city, so it's a walled city. Lots of thriving structures from the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. It's like it's a lot like Venice. It's a time warp trip.
Have you eaten at the restaurant there?
No, I have not. I've had a drink.
I actually did when I was there, and the interesting thing is that up, like where the wall meets the roof, there's this very tiny painting that is the only known image of Vlad Dracula, and they've kind of just, I don't know, they never plastered over it, or they just kind of left it alone, and it's not very big, but that's really kind of the only thing that exists that gives us an idea of what the guy probably actually looked like. And he looks nothing like Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, no, nothing at all. Although Vlad Dracula is actually Dracula's father, Vlad II, and Dracula, his son, means son of Dracul, or son of the dragon, if you want to go back to the original meaning. But as we know, Bram Stoker took the alternate translation, and they decided Dracul meant devil, and that was part of his invented history for the Count.
Wait, so if Dracula means son of the dragon, could the Targaryens in Game of Thrones be considered Draculas?
Well, I think it depends on what. Do they have a Latin-based language? I forget. I don't know.
No, they speak Old Volantis. Because they're
okay.
Yeah, after the Doom of Valeria, they
Right.
came over to Westeros. Obviously,
Yeah. I don't know. We'd have to do some study on that, Gary.
Gary, I think I like you a little bit more now that I know you're a Game of Thrones watcher.
Oh, I'm a huge. I've read the books twice,
Wow.
and yeah, after I'm done talking to you guys, I'll be turning on HBO tonight. And I was literally when I was on my way to the Balkans, I was in the Vienna airport, and I had to install a VPN on my iPhone so I could watch HBO, the HBO Now app, and I watched the newest episode of Game of Thrones on my phone at the airport waiting for a flight.
Which was an excellent episode.
You got to watch Game of Thrones on a big screen. I'm sorry, I can't imagine watching it on a phone.
Oh, when you're desperate, the things that you will go to watch a next episode. Hey, Gary, so you? We'll get.
All the VPN on his phone. The guy was extremely desperate.
Oh yeah, and we're at a point now in the show where it's caught up and surpassed the books, so nobody knows what's going to happen.
Ooh.
That's the thing. So
are you talking about this show or
Game of Thrones?
Yes, the This Week in Travel series of novels.
Now gotten ahead of the novels. Yeah,
yes,
it's true. Also, I don't know if a lot of people realize that though.
Well, with every episode of This Week in Travel, you really never know if we're going to have another one.
That's why it's like a gift. Let's switch gears a little bit, Life, and talk about the upcoming TBex that you're going to be hosting.
Yeah.
Why don't you go into a little bit about how you made that happen?
TBex is my full job right now. I don't even remember what I used to do at the mall.
Yeah, we joked about you working at Hot Dog on a Stick, but we really haven't said what you actually do at Mall of America.
I'm the tourism communications manager for the mall. Very small team. There's only 4 people on my team, but we work well, there's a 5th person if you count a person that works exclusively with the international. So the 5 of us are trying to attract people from all over the world to the mall. And I am part of the communications part. The reason why I got that job, I think, is mainly because of my 11 years as a travel writer, my connections, and I turned the tables on all my writer friends. Now I'm pitching them. Before we were all together, and anyway. So now they're my victims.
Are your pitches any better because you've been on the other side of this?
Absolutely. Oh my God, yes. I changed. I've taught a class on it at the last TBex, man. I'm trying to bring the rest of marketing over to my side and teach them how to be a little bit more thoughtful and customize their pitches a little bit better. But yeah, having been a travel writer, attending TBex, and then switching teams, being travel marketing, tourism marketing, attending TBex, I was kind of uniquely positioned to write a successful bid to host TBex here in Minnesota. And it's going to be happening out in Bloomington at the Radisson Blu Hotel, which is adjacent to Mall of America. So while the actual conference will be happening in the hotel there, we have events happening one night in the mall, one night in downtown Minneapolis at First Avenue, the home of Prince, the late artist who we are all still mourning. And then the final night, closing night party will be in St. Paul, downtown St. Paul. So we're trying to, which is why it's called TBex Minnesota and not TBex Bloomington. We're trying to give the whole state a nice big lift with this single conference.
And you mentioned you have somebody on the team who helps reach out to international travelers. I know you've told me this before, that there are people who fly from, say, Japan to Minneapolis. They get off the plane, they come to the Mall of America, they shop for however long, maybe stay at the Radisson or someplace there because there are hotels at the mall, as you mentioned, get back on the plane and fly home.
Without having seen Minneapolis, St. Paul, or any of the rest, So, as much as I like to hear those stories, it's kind of a shame. Minnesota is a wonderful place. I chose to resettle here, so did Gary, after being itinerant for so many years. Minneapolis, I just love it. I should be a Minneapolis ambassador. I can't say enough good things about it. I love it here. It's like a less expensive Chicago. I'm speaking and looking out my 26th floor window at the city right now. I live downtown Minneapolis, and it's just, So I have strong feelings about my city, but Japanese are famous for coming, shopping, and just turning around and leaving. The Germans have been doing a lot of that. The Nordic countries. Part of the appeal is there's no tax on clothing or shoes in the state of Minnesota. We're one of only 4 states where that's the case. So it's like a double discount coming here. You come to the Midwest, and everything is already less expensive because it's the Midwest, less expensive than the coasts. And then we don't have tax on clothing and shoes. Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport is a Delta hub, so it's really easy for people to get here in just one hop from a lot of places. So there's a lot of elements that contribute to, the people coming in, shopping, turning right around, going home without ever having even had a meal outside of the mall.
Except for hot dog on a stick, really, is what you're saying.
Well, yes. And the mall has gotten a lot better in terms of food. I have to admit that 10 years ago was a lot of mall, with a few rare exceptions, it was just mall food, and now we have some outstanding restaurants there. One of them is the Firelight Grill, which is inside the Radisson Blu, and they will be feeding us at TBex, so I'm really excited about that. They're a fantastic, locally farm-to-table type concept. The interior of the restaurant has been built from rescued wood from farm barns. They're all farm barns, aren't they? From barns.
Reclaimed barnwood.
Predominantly.
They have they're making their own honey. They have beehives up on the roof. I mean, they're very serious about keeping it local.
You're a Lonely Planet author. You've traveled around, and there's a lot of people that are thinking of attending TBex, and they love traveling. They go to these different places, explore different cultures, and then there's this travel conference that says we're going to have an event and a mall. So what is your answer to people as to why they should attend, even though it may not be the most, travel-y type thing that they could do, or it doesn't appear to, at least at first blush?
Well, I would ask, where were the other TBexes? The Fort Lauderdale was in some far-flung convention center where near nothing, especially notably food. I remember that. The one in they're almost always in convention centers that are like far away from where you actually want to be. Vancouver, Toronto wasn't so bad. You were kind of in the thick of it. I didn't go to Cancun, but you always seem to be just miles away from where you actually want to be in the city. So I mean, I don't really see how it's any different here. The TBex is happening in a hotel for starters, not the mall. I mean, I know it's easy to say, well, the mall's right there, so it's happening at the mall. It's happening in Bloomington, but at the other TBexes, I mean, how much are you outside of the convention center or the hotel, the host hotel? Not very much. We, however, have made quite a valiant effort to get people out of Bloomington and the rest of the Twin Cities, which is, again, why it's called TBex Minnesota and not TBex Mall of America. We've got Minneapolis and St. Paul that have worked very closely on this, and they have just as much a stake in it as Bloomington or Mall of America.
Isn't there a river rafting trip happening and a really strong family travel angle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Minnesota is, these lists come out every week, and they're of varying merit, but Minnesota ranks high in a lot of those livability lists, those family-friendly lists, outdoorsy. We're very outdoorsy. The cold white north tundra reputation that we have has been pretty hard to shake. When in fact we are one of the greenest. We're the top cycling destination. We finally beat Portland after years of being second place. No Minneapolis resident lives more than 6 blocks from a park. When you come in for a landing at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport, you fly over Minneapolis and it's just all green. It's just all green. When you fly
a little on which season you fly in, but when we're flying in there, it will definitely be all green. Yeah.
That's true. About 3 months a year, it's a very sad sight, but the rest of the time it's green. You come in for a landing in New York, and all you see is rooftops. I mean, it's very, and there's water everywhere. We got the Mississippi River, we got lakes everywhere. It's a very outdoorsy place. So yeah, there's gonna be tons of family-related pre-Bex and post-TBex fam trips. And yeah, I don't know if there's a whitewater rafting one. I know there's some.
Yeah, there was in the downtown actually.
All right. Well, then, yeah, the Mississippi River, there's a lot of boating opportunities out there.
Do you know what the head count's at right now?
No, I don't.
TBex hasn't announced that. Looks to me like it'll be a little smaller than Cancun, so actually a good opportunity to meet with some of the sponsors.
Those are some of the best TBexes.
Yeah, they can be a lot of fun when it's not 1,300 people or so, and it looks like it's probably down a little since it's very recently after Cancun. It depends a lot because they get a lot of late-minute registrations for TBex. It's always a little hard to tell.
Yeah, travel bloggers and travel media. I mean, well, not travel and the travel PR. For some reason, all of them love to plan everything at the last second. So it's kind of tough for, even the numbers I had a few weeks ago are probably way off now, because everybody waits till the last minute. But that Toronto where there was 1,200, 1,500 people, that was kind of a disaster. I mean, I loved it. I had a good time there, but everyone I wanted to talk to, I saw them each for about 12 seconds. It was too much. Too many people. It was too much. I didn't go to Cancun. Fort Lauderdale was a little bit better. I think that was just a hair under 700, if I remember correctly.
It was right around that number. I think it was a little over 700, as I recall, but yeah, right around that number.
I wasn't thrilled with the location in Fort Lauderdale. It was miles from everywhere, but Fort Lauderdale, I mean, I don't think there's a place you actually want to be in Fort Lauderdale. I said I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Fort Lauderdale. But, this is going to be probably smaller than Fort Lauderdale even, I'm guessing.
One of the great things I think that's going to work out for you and the guests is that if you're having it in the hotel and people are staying at the hotel, the best networking comes from people just sort of meeting up spontaneously at the lobby bar. When you're in a hotel like Cancun was, you can just meet people without having to book an appointment. You can all just sort of hover in that lobby or the bar or whatever your central areas of the one hotel, and it really makes things fun that way to just sort of join people spontaneously.
Yep, you can have breakfast together. You can have late night drinks because you're staggering distance from your room. It's when you have it in a convention center, you're miles from your room. I mean, you can't, and there's no bar in the convention center. So it's a hotel. I agree. The hotel location is a huge perk.
The best TBex I probably ever went to was in Dublin, and that was also in a hotel.
I loved Dublin.
Yeah, everybody was kind of in one spot, and I think that really made it a lot better.
I haven't seen the numbers recently, but the vast majority of the TBex attendees for TBex Minnesota are staying right in the Radisson Blu. So it's going to be like a big sleepover.
Like that could be good or bad, depending on your experience with sleepovers.
Yes.
Sounds like fun.
You're never too old, Gary.
Are you going to take a vacation after all this hard work life?
I can't. I'm going to IPW in New Orleans like a week and a half later. And then a few weeks later, I go to TBex Stockholm.
It is a busy summer.
Yes, it is. But I get to go to El Paso, Texas for a juggling festival in July. So that should be awesome.
That sounds like fun.
I've never been to Texas, but I know it's hot and it's going to be July, so...
What has been the most interesting destination that you've juggled for?
Oh,
juggled in.
Oh, dear. You mean like as a performer or just attending a festival?
As a performer.
I didn't do a whole lot of traveling when I was a paid performer. I stayed pretty regional, so mostly the state of Minnesota. And I didn't do it for very long. It took all the fun out of juggling, quite frankly. So
Did you ever do it as a busker?
No, I didn't like not knowing that I was going to get paid before I started the show, so I wasn't doing a whole lot of busking. It was mostly corporate events and lock-ins, birthday parties, lots of carnivals, festivals. Minnesota has like a festival every weekend, so that's a good source of income for local performers.
All right, then. Anything more before we move on to our picks of the week?
My book is going to be out in paperback in a couple of days, so if you're not an e-reader person, if you like paper, like so many people have told me, I buckled, and I've got a proof on its way to me right now when it gets here, and it doesn't look too funny. I'm going to put it back. I'm going to put it on Amazon right next to the Kindle version.
Terrific.
Just out of curiosity, do you make more money off of a print book or a Kindle version?
Kindle by a lot. Print book, I want to say I'm doing print on demand, so probably it costs more, but I'm getting about 10% of the off the price, and whereas the Kindle version I get 70%.
I have a friend who's an author who said he knows people who buy the hardback, which is the more expensive one, because they think they're trying to be nice to him. They really appreciate all the other content they've given him, so I'll buy your hardback. He's like, yeah, please buy the Kindle because I make a couple bucks on the hardback. I mean, it's just not the right economic model for if you're trying to help out the author.
That was kind of my thought process going into it, but so many people asked me about prints. I finally just buckled, and I'm going through with it. I've been struggling to get the cover right, but now I think I got it right, and so it should be on the website within days, I hope. Before TBex, for sure.
All right, then. Let's move on to our picks of the week. And I'll actually go first this time. I have two apps this week. So the first of which is a brand new, it's an updated version of the Travel Smart app by Allianz Insurance. And this is, if you have a policy with Allianz for travel insurance, this works really well because the app will now let you put your policy information right into the app. It gives you can contact the insurance company if you have to file a policy. They have different ways to contact domestically and overseas. Plus, it just has a bunch of information in terms of medical help, country information, where to find a hospital based on where you're located, and a bunch of stuff that just makes the process of staying safe on the road a lot easier. And it's something you should probably look at. The app is free. Like I said, and if you have an Allianz travel insurance policy, it works really well with it because you can kind of sync up to it. And I've noticed, and I know that this is something that I always have a hard time. You apply for a travel insurance policy, and the question is like, where's your number? If you need to file a claim or something, or if that's God forbid you're in the hospital, having this on your app can really make things helpful. So check that out. Second thing, So I was flying to Europe, and I see this sign at O'Hare for the mobile passport app. And this was in the airport, and it was like a government thing. And so sure enough, I installed it, and there's not a whole lot to it, actually. Basically, you put in your all of your passport number and things like that. And in theory, you can use the app as your passport when you're entering the U.S. Now, I haven't looked into this entirely, but there's some security features in it and things like that. But
all we get is a bright screen when you hold that up to the video, Gary. Those of you on
people
audio
don't
really
need to
aren't
know
missing anything here.
But yeah, so it's I haven't used it yet, but it's something I'm certainly going to check out because I think the concept is interesting. Because with this and Apple Pay, you could conceivably, plus your mobile boarding pass, plus using your brand new phone as the key to your hotel room, you could go on a trip with your smartphone. You could use it to get on the plane. You could use it to get through customs and through passport control. You could buy stuff with it. You could flag an Uber at the airport to get where you want to go and walk into your hotel room using absolutely nothing but your phone. And this is basically the future. I think we're done. I think we could probably...
So I know a couple of people who have tried that recently, and I would agree with you that it's the future. We're almost there. There's still Apple Pay not accepted that many, not accepted that many places, or even the alternative versions. But it's getting there. It's getting there. Yeah, it's really interesting how we're doing away with the wallets over time here.
The idea of a digital passport is not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're using you could get away with the whole idea of having to send away for a new one. You could do a visa. You could just apply for it, and they give you a code. You put that code in, and your passport would be valid for certain dates going to that country. It's not crazy, and I would not be surprised within the next decade maybe that becomes kind of a norm in international travel.
Yeah, the problem is going to be that your screen is going to be hard to read with all those passport stamps on it.
Well, that's why you swipe to get to the other stamps. Just as an aside, speaking of apps, so when I was flying to Europe, I was bored, and I sat down and I tried to list every airline that I've ever flown on in my life.
I saw that, Gary. I couldn't believe you had remembered it.
Well, most of those came from TripIt. So I actually went through and went to my past trips and looked at the airlines. And the number I came up with was almost 90. Different airlines, not flights, but like completely different airlines.
All of which, or most of which, are still in business, or?
Yeah, it was only like Continental, TWA, Air Wisconsin, US Air,
Northwest.
that I think are Northwest that are.
I think for me it would include quite a few Pan Am, those that are defunct now, or have merged in. When you count all of the different, what are the 5 different ones that came into US Air? I don't even know if I could come up with all of those, but
I think I flew on Frontier at some point, but I'm not positive.
I definitely have.
Anyways, Chris, what's your pick this week?
Well, before we get to my pick, I do want to mention, too, you were mentioning the Allianz app. We talked with them at the TBex in Cancun, and we talked about the fact that they had a version of their insurance that's a year-long version for travel writers and travel bloggers. I have actually since purchased that, and so this seems like a good time to mention that if you are somebody, we know that a number of the people who listen to the show or who watch it are travel bloggers or travel writers. It is a good policy for if you're on the road a fair amount, like travel bloggers and travel writers are, to look into that.
Do you remember about how much it was, Chris?
Nope. I remember it was a good deal, but I don't remember how much.
Well, that's all you need to say.
So, and my apologies to the people on the audio version, but I'm going to hold up something. This is a piece of glass. It's a glass bowl. I'll have pictures of this on my website here pretty soon. And the thing that's cool about this is I made this in a glass blowing class, basically,
Wow,
at the Corning Museum of Glass. And that is my tip for today, my recommendation. I just got back from the Finger Lakes last week. And Kim from the Corning Museum of Glass PR has been trying to get me out there for a while when she was still with the tourism board for Finger Lakes. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll have to say I was more impressed with the museum and more impressed with the region than I expected to be, and that includes me as a California wine snob, trying wines in the region of the Finger Lakes. I'm only a wine snob when I leave the state, I should say, but I do get to be a wine snob when I leave the state, and people take me to wineries in places like Kentucky, and they say, "We have wine," and I say, "Yeah, no, you don't." But so I enjoyed that, and then the average tourist who comes to the Corning Museum of Glass spends 4.5 hours there, on average, because there is so much to see: the art of glass, the history of glass, and then the demonstrations in terms of how glass is made and glass blowing and the technology of it. And then 20 to 25% of people do what we did, and they make glass. Actually dipping, rods into furnaces of molten glass, which is really, really hot. It's 2,300 degrees, and you really feel that. And then taking it out, and with great assistance from their helpers, blowing glass. It was fascinating. It was very cool.
I'm impressed. It is beautiful.
Thank you. My wife's is better looking. I'll have to admit. Hers is a blue, but she made some better choices. But pictures, a blog post will going up in the next day or so on my blog about the whole trip. About the museum, with more coming about the rest of the trip.
I don't know how good your wife's choices are. I mean, she did marry you. So.
Well, she's done better since. Let's just say that.
Jen, what do you got for us this week?
Well, since you are so flash forward into our future, I'm going to be a little bit old school here. We were talking about those mini bottles, which were such a nice reminder of travel days past. I'm going to recommend Minimus Biz, MINIMUS.biz, and this is a whole website devoted to minis. Minis of all kind. I don't think they have any liquor. I did a quick search. I didn't see any. But they have personal care, food and beverage, personal health, baby and toddler section. Anything that you could possibly want, from mini cereals to mini bottles of ketchup and Tabasco to wipes. Anything that might make your travel carry-on more convenient, or little laundry detergent bags if you're going away and you just want single serve items. Minimus Biz is your thing. And I haven't been here in a little while, but I noticed they have a toys, games, and figurines section, which, as a parent, I know are really, really great to have, because I'm always going to get Cora little tiny treats toy-wise for the plane. And here you can do all of that shopping all at once. You can get the little individual play or multiplayer games, all these little versions of things, just the same
like
as your
their little
ketchup.
tiny shopping carts that they show as a picture to put all your little stuff in.
Yeah, so I've probably mentioned this site like 3 years ago, since we've been doing this show for 7 years. But just since we were talking about the mini bottles, I thought I would remind y'all that this is available as well.
I don't remember you mentioning this one, Jen.
Really, in 7 years?
I don't remember it.
I've never been here before in my life. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
It's cute, and I do think for people who might need their ketchup, I know when Cora was smaller, she really needed to have ketchup with her chicken, and if you're going to a certain country that might not have that available to you, this would be really helpful.
Well, and especially if you're going to one of those countries that thinks they have it because they have the tomato sauce, but not the ketchup. It's not the same.
Australia.
Or the reverse, where you go and order some pasta with red sauce, and the red sauce turns out to be ketchup. That's the worst. Trust me.
In all fairness, that is a red sauce.
All right, fine.
Life, you got anything for us this week?
I do, and this is also kind of a little bit another personal plug. A new website that was supposed to be launched already, but has had a couple of setbacks due to some bugs. is coming out soon. It's called Bindu Itineraries. And what they've done is, and this is the same group of people that did Sutro Media, not the authors, the ones that had all those apps. Yep, tons of apps. Well, that went south, and all of the authors were given the rights to their content back. And someone kind of corralled us all together, 200 authors altogether and experts, and they've created it, put it into a website, which is going to be opening soon. It's the idea is you can kind of develop your own itineraries. It's interactive. You just select what you want to do, whether it's a theme or geographical distance or whatever. And it's I don't know when it's going to be online.
Can you say the URL again? Can you spell out the URL?
We'll have it in the show notes, but it's bindumedia.com.
Correct. Yes.
And it's not online yet.
No, it is not. There's a little page that I'm looking at right now, the little placeholder. But yeah, I'm the author of the Florence, Italy guide, and there are states and regions and cities and countries. They're all going to be worked in together into this website when it finally launches. BinduMedia.com. Keep an eye out for it.
Life, are they going to have templates so that I could create my own itinerary?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And then do the authors get paid if the itineraries sell?
I don't think we're paid by itinerary. I think we're paid by page views and other related things. I honestly, the concept has changed several times since we launched this idea, and I read the emails only sporadically. So all I know is I got my itinerary, my guide for Florence, Italy is ready. I'm dying to go back there now, having gone through all that material again. I need to go back just to eat, but yes, it should be online soon. And visit the Florence page and just click on everything, please.
Where red sauce will not be ketchup.
No, it will not. I don't think there's ketchup within 100 miles of the city of Florence, but I can't be sure.
All right, then. Let's start to wrap things up. Chris, what's new in the Amateur Traveler this week?
Speaking of Italy, we just did a show on Naples and the Amalfi Coast on the Amateur Traveler yesterday.
Excellent. Jen, where can people find you online?
You can find me on the LA Times travel blog for my WebBuzz column, but also I'm going to be doing an in-depth app review this week, so check out the blog later in the week this week, and you'll see a much longer piece coming from me.
Excellent. Life, where can people find you online?
LifePetterson.com, LeifPettersen.com, and of course, Backpacking with Dracula is available on Amazon, both Kindle and soon-to-be paperback.
As usual, you can find me at everything-everywhere.com. And check out the new episodes of the Global Travel Conspiracy. This week I'll be talking about my trip to the Balkans and what I discovered there. And did someone have anything they wanted to add? I heard a breath.
Come to TBex.
All right, then.
All right.
Till next time, go outside and check out Backpacking with Dracula by Life Pedersen on Amazon.com.